Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today, we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. Okay. Mission Impossible. It's been going on since the 90s. I know it's based off of a show, but literally no one remembers the show. People only remember the movies. Started all the way back 1996, starring the one only Tom Cruise. And as you can see here, the box office results were really good. 180 million domestic, 457 million worldwide on a budget of 80 million. Well, numbers like that say you got to keep going. You got to make more of these things. And they certainly made more of them. And Mission Impossible 2 in 2000, which did better, financially, albeit, critically, it was seen as a bust. But financially, I believe it was the biggest movie of 2000, at least, worldwide. But then it took 6 years to make Mission Impossible 3. And with a gap like that doesn't usually bode well for a sequel's chances. And that's kind of what happened with Mission Impossible 3. Because while it didn't flop per se, it was seen as a big financial disappointment, only making 133 million domestically, about 400 million worldwide on a budget of 150 mil. Compared to the first two, yeah, a bit of a drop off. Didn't help them when they came out. People were kind of really sick of seeing Tom Cruise. From this couch jumping on Oprah to Scientology, his relationship with Katie Holmes being shoved in everybody's face. Yeah, people just were kind of sick of Tom Cruise at the time. Then 5 years later, you have Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. And when we reach this point, a franchise should die off, realistically. It should be like, okay, why are we doing this? Are you just out of ideas? Like, you think no one would give a shit, but that wasn't the case for Ghost Protocol, not at all. And you see this 12 million, but oh, that's terrible. Actually, no, that was just like IMAX theaters only. The actual opening weekend was 29 million, but this was like during Christmas, so numbers get a little weird. But the weekend numbers really didn't matter because the movie ended up doing really well. A big old jump, yeah, jumped quite a bit from the third movie, making 200 million domestic, almost 700 million worldwide, and it was critically acclaimed. On top of that, people were just like, damn, okay, we might actually have something here with Mission Impossible. It's not just American James Bond anymore. So then that led to like this little renaissance of Mission Impossible movies, with the next one being Rogue Nation, which did a little worse than Ghost Protocol, but still about the same. And then you have Fallout, which did better than Rogue Nation and ended up being the biggest Mission Impossible movie worldwide. So yeah, things were like looking like hella good. And then with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, well, things took a turn, financially speaking, because it did quite a bit worse than the last movie. And I'll go over Dead Reckoning in more detail when I get to cons, because that movie's gonna may have a negative effect on this with Final Reckoning because they're linked technically. But yeah, Mission Impossible, throughout its history, it's a lot of success. It has a lot of goodwill on top of that. A lot of the movies being like very, very well received. I believe Fallout's considered like to be like the best of all the movies. So yeah. Mission Impossible as a brand, I will label that as a pro. Another pro, Tom Cruise. I mean, the man himself is a brand. He's his own brand at this point. But yeah, I'm not gonna go over this whole cast because there's just way too many people. But really, we're only gonna focus on Tom Cruise because really, with the Mission Impossible movies, he's the only name that really matters because he's like the face of the series as Ethan Hunt. But yeah, Tom Cruise. It's been around since the 80s. You know, Top Gun, and Top Gun, Rain Man. I guess Risky Business. Add that in there too. Then in the '90s, there's like The Days of Thunder. There's A Few Good Men, The Firm, Interview with a Vampire. Then the first Mission Impossible. Then Jerry Maguire. Eyes Wide Shut was a movie. That's a movie I intend to watch one day, but I know it's a movie that's like a little weird, a little out there. I'm aware of that because of its subject matter. But after that, Mission Impossible 2, yep. Vanilla Sky, Minority Report, which is so funny. That Minority Report went up against the original Lilo and Stitch back in 2002. Here we are, 2025. You got Tom Cruise's new Mission Impossible movie going up against live action Lilo and Stitch. So, Stitch and Cruise, round 2. First in '02, now in 2025. It's weird how things work sometimes. Anywho, Minority Report, that was a hit. Oh yeah, he cameoed in Austin Powers and Goldmember as like a fake Austin Powers in that movie. But I'm not gonna count that because that was just a cameo. Last Samurai, Collateral, War of the Worlds, all hits. Mission Impossible 3, which is technically a hit, but also technically a box office disappointment at the same time. Tropic Thunder, where he's basically unrecognizable in that movie, but he's kind of more of like a side character in that. Valkyrie did okay. Night and Day did meh business. Then you got Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Rock of Ages, that was a flop. Then you got Jack Reacher, which did financially okay, even though people didn't really, buy into that movie. I mean, people would get a better Jack Reacher with, Alan Richardson with the show Reacher later on. They got Oblivion, which did okay. Edge of Tomorrow, which could have done, I wish did a lot better because it's a hell of a good movie. Then you got Rogue Nation and Jack Reacher Never Go Back. That just did The Mummy 2017. Oof. Big mistake. Big L. Huge flop. Killed the Dark Universe before it even began. Then we got American Made, which I think just did just did meh. Whatever. Then Fallout did great. Then Top Gun Maverick. Do I even need to say anything about Top Gun Maverick? I mean, 1.4 billion. Enough's been said about Top Gun Maverick's box office. It's spectacular. The biggest movie Tom Cruise has ever made by a country mile, as you can see. So not much to explain with that one. And then Dead Reckoning, which did bleh. And then here we are. So Tom Cruise has a lot of success under his belt. He's had some duds, but for the most part, his box office track record is more positive than negative. So I will end, besides, he's the main reason people are even going to watch this movie, because people want to see his stunts because he does his own shit. This man's risking his life making these movies, doing shit that I would never do. I would never even think of doing. So he has my respect for that. So Tom Cruise, pro, easily. But I guess I can quickly mention, some other names here. Haley Atwell, mainly known for being Peggy Carter in like the MCU. Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg. Vanessa, she really wasn't in the movie, though. I wouldn't count her. Palm killed. Oh my god, I don't know how to say her last name. Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, that's who it is. You got her, Nick Offerman, Angela Bassett. I mean, we got some recognizable faces in here. So I will, the fact that we have like a recognizable cast overall, I'll label that as a pro. Another pro is that this weekend is the Memorial Day. Obviously, big holiday. I mean, Tom Cruise, he knows how big this holiday is because Top Gun Maverick, at this point in time, owns the record for the biggest Memorial Day opening ever. A record that is going to be broken this weekend by Lilo and Stitch, because Stitch has always had Tom Cruise's number. He has an eternal grudge against that man. He just does. So yeah. Yeah, so but still Memorial Day will help this movie make it like a big event. So I will label that as a pro. Another pro is that this movie doesn't have the same problem Dead Reckoning had, where Dead Reckoning had to deal with the behemoth that was Barbenheimer. You know, Barbie and Oppenheimer, both movies coming out 2 years ago. Because what I originally thought would just be like a funny little internet thing turned into a straight up real world phenomenon. And that phenomenon murdered Dead Reckoning's box office. Final Reckoning does not have to deal with a problem like that. Instead of going up against a Barbenheimer, Final Reckoning is a part of a Barbenheimer with Lilo and Stitch, because those two movies together have formed a monster. And that monster is going to lead to the biggest Memorial Day box office total like ever. So, yeah. Final Reckoning doesn't have to deal with a Barbenheimer level threat because it is the Barbenheimer level threat. At least it's part of it. And there won't be any real, just, I guess, in terms of direct competition, there's Ballerina, but that comes out in 2 weeks. And then this movie, its IMAX screens will be, given to How to Train Your Dragon. That's in 3 weeks. So this movie has a little time to play out, has more time to live in comparison to its predecessor. So I will label that as a pro. Another pro is that reviews for this movie are pretty good. They're not as good as some of the other Mission Impossibles, but 79% is not bad. It's just good, not great. Audience score is 92%. Cinema score is A minus. How does that compare to the other Mission Impossibles? Let me see. Fallout got an A. Rogue Nation got an A minus. Mission Impossible 2 got a B. That's rough. Mission Impossible 3 got an A minus. Ghost Protocol A minus. Dead Reckoning got an A. So it's about the same. I know Mission Impossible the original got a B plus. So it's about on par with the others. So overall, word of mouth, I will label it as a pro. And I guess I could also mention the fact that, this movie is all about spectacle, right? So, people are going to be looking for that too, want to be watching this on like the biggest screen possible to get like the maximum experience. So I will, label that as a pro as well. I guess another pro is preview numbers, 8.3 million. I mean, for Mission Impossible standards, it's the best of the whole series. It's better than Dead Reckoning, which I know comparing Dead Reckoning to Final Reckoning, it's literally apples and oranges, because Dead Reckoning, this is its former title, Part 1, because, Final Reckoning was supposed to be Dead Reckoning Part 1, but then Part 2, but then they changed it for reasons that I will go over later. But yeah, Dead Reckoning, that opened on a Wednesday and had a Tuesday preview of 7 million, so that's very much not comparable here. It's just not. So, yeah. But still, I mean, compared to, say, Fallout, because that had like a normal release, that had a preview number of 6 million. So, I say it's in like a good spot to be have the biggest opening out of all the Mission Impossibles. So I'll label that as a pro. Especially considering Lilo and Stitch is like the same weekend. That's doing like way better, box office wise. So the fact that you have like two big movies seemingly like coexisting in the same space, that's good. That's great. That's great for the box office. So that's a pro. With its preview numbers. I think that's it with pros. Okay, cons. Okay, so we got to talk about Dead Reckoning, formerly known as Dead Reckoning Part 1. All right. So with this movie, I made the very false assumption that the success of Top Gun Maverick would carry over to this movie. Like some of that you know, that phenomenon, the success of that would, benefit this. That's what I thought. So, and my box office expectations for this were quite high. I thought this was going to make $1 billion. And as you can see, I was very wrong. Yeah, so yeah, when it came out, when I saw like its opening day numbers, I was just like, oh, what's going on? And I saw its Thursday numbers, I was like, ugh. It recovered over the weekend, but still like 54 million. I thought it would do like way better than that. But I'm like, okay, maybe it can, have decent legs. Mission Impossible movies have pretty lengthy runs. So I thought that would happen here. Not quite, because guess what happened? Guess what? Barbenheimer, right here. Look at these numbers. Yeah, that's gonna do some damage. But if it was just Barbie, I think Mission Impossible probably would have been okay. But Oppenheimer, that killed Dead Reckoning straight up. Took its core audience, took its IMAX screens. That movie killed it more than anything else. And as you can see, it dropped hard, and it was never able to really recover after that. They ended up making 172 million domestically. I believe it's the second lowest of the whole series, behind only ahead of Mission Impossible 3. Worldwide, big drop off from Fallout. And this movie was not cheap at all. Cost $290 million. And that's mainly because of the fact that this movie filmed during COVID times. So filming was a pain, because back then, if anyone got sick, your movie had to be shut down for like 2 weeks. And that extended production is only going to drive that budget upwards. So movie took a long ass time to film. And as a result, the budget was like sky fucking high. And yeah, just like super high budget. And the fact that I made a false assumption that Top Gun Maverick would like benefit this, and then dealing with the monster that was Barbenheimer. Yeah, all those things led to Dead Reckoning being a flop, which is no doubt why they changed the final movie from Dead Reckoning Part 2 to just The Final Reckoning, because why would you want to be associated with a flop, right? And it wasn't like they were going to cancel that second movie. It was already going to get made, so like why even try doing that? So by having it be The Final Reckoning, it's able to stand on its own and not be directly tied to a box office bomb. But still, Dead Reckoning was a flop financially. And that is a big old negative with this, because of all the people who didn't watch Dead Reckoning, are they gonna watch The Final Reckoning? Because if they do, then they're gonna be hella confused. So yeah, just the final Dead Reckoning's box office results, I will label that as a con for this movie. Big old con. Another con is this movie's budget. Jesus fucking Christ. $400 million. It's the numbers between 300 and 400 million, but it's still 400 million for a movie. God damn. And obviously this movie had to deal with a new set of problems. Writer strikes and actor strikes. Because this movie was supposed to come out last year, but because of those strikes, they weren't able to do some filming on it, so it had to get pushed back a whole year. So yeah, obviously that is gonna drive that budget up. And the fact the movie's very big in scope, and what you see on screen, you see that money on the big screen, okay? And it looks really nice, but damn, that budget is a killer. To the point where this movie needs $1 billion just to break even, which is a fucked situation. So yeah, that monster budget, that's a con. Big old con. And I think that's really it with cons. Yeah. I guess I can mention this the final Mission Impossible movie, and that could drive up ticket sales. I don't know how much though. So, but I guess I can label it as a pro. The finality of the movie, even though me watching it, it did not feel like the end. I didn't get that vibe watching it. But whatever. But yeah, I think that's it. So opening weekend, we gotta do 3 day and 4 day because it's Memorial Day. 4 day opening I've seen is like 78 million. That's the number I've seen. That number could go higher or lower. There's also the fact this movie is hella long. Like 169. That's 3 hours. So watching this movie like freely is a bit of a challenge. So yeah. Yeah, but numbers I'm seeing is this is 64 million for 3 day, 4 day 78 million. I guess I can go with that. Maybe like okay, I'm gonna have a range of 65 million. Just a solid 65. I think I'm gonna go with that. But 65 to 70 million. I'm gonna go with that. 65 to 70 million opening week, a 3 day weekend, 4 day weekend. I'm like, 75 to 80. Yeah, probably closer to 80. I don't know. 75 to 80. I need a wider range. God. I'm gonna have a real wide range. 60 to 70 for 3 day, 75 to 85 4 day. And its final total, its legs should be good, realistically. I don't see it like dropping hard. I guess like 200 million, about that. That's where I see it. That's where I see it landing. So I'm gonna go with that. 200 million total. And that's it for Final Reckoning, and we're done for Memorial Day. Yeah. So Memorial Day weekend is popping off big time. And next weekend, we got 2 movies, but keep in mind these are actual like big releases, not like where we had literally nothing last year, post Memorial Day. This year we actually have movies that I actually want to talk about. We got Bring Her Back, which I'm quite excited to see, and then we got Karate Kid Legends, and then that'll be it for next week. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this? I got playlists on the homepage, all previous prediction videos I made on the channel. I've done, for all the prediction videos I made this year and the past few years. You want to watch any of those videos, you can go right ahead. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. My May recap won't be until like the second weekend of June, so stay tuned for that. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. It's also the Cancel series where I went over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. Oh my god, I talked about Mission Impossible 8 because it didn't have an official title for like a long time. I talked about that movie so much, and I talked about it alongside 7 because it was a back-to-back thing where if 7 got delayed, 8 got delayed too. So by default, I talked about Mission Impossible 8 way more times than I wanted to. So let's go over all those episodes, shall we? So episode 8. So real fucking early in the series. Yeah, episode 8. That's the first time I talked about it. Alongside 7. Dead Reckoning. Talked about it alongside, as it says here, Spider-Man 3 MCU, which ended up being No Way Home. Into the Spider-Verse 2, which ended up being Across the Spider-Verse. Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. And then there's also Thor Love and Thunder, Connected, which ended up being Mitchell's versus the Machines. Uncharted. I think the Tomorrow War is like on the thumbnail. Yeah, it is. Huh. Yeah. So that's the movies I talked about like the first time I talked about Mission Impossible 8. What was the second time? Episode 43? No, not 43. Let me see. 56? Yeah, 56. 56. So both 7 and 8 they got delayed. And I also thought about Top Gun Maverick, Jackass 4, and then Snake Eyes. So that was the second time. Third time was, let me see, episode 76, where I talked about uh actually well, no, that not that one. That was just 7, not 8. um gotta talk about what was the okay. Here's another one. Episode 102, where I talked about Mission Impossible 7, 8 getting delayed again. And then Blazing Samurai, which ended up being like Paws of Fury. So yeah, that was like another time I talked about it. Yeah. Then what else? Okay, the last time I mentioned it was episode 211, where I talked about it alongside A Quiet Place Day 1, If, and the new SpongeBob movie, which ended up being, what's it called? SpongeBob. Shit, I forgot the title. I'll look it up very fast off screen. This will only take like a few seconds. Just gotta scroll. Here it is. Oh shit. I had it and then it was gone. Here it is. Search for SquarePants. Oh yeah, that's the new SpongeBob movie. So those are all the times I talked about Mission Impossible 8. So if you want to watch any of those cancel episodes, you can. So you can go right ahead and do that. But if you want to watch the whole series, want to binge watch all episodes from like beginning to end, I highly suggest you do that. So go do it. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.